Hey everybody! So today we are going to talk about ancient Greece basics. Now, I got a lot to talk about today, so let's get started. All right, learning targets. Students can identify basic Greek mythology and religion, identify elements of a polis, identify the role of warriors and farmers in Greek city-states, and explain how democracy in Greek is similar to the US's democracy. All right, your job, as always, doesn't change too much. You're going to watch this ed puzzle. You're going to answer the questions that pop up. Questions I will ask you during the video will be in blue text. Follow along with your study guide. Important concepts on your study guide will be in red text. And of course, if you have any questions, email me or come to office hours Thursday and Friday, 12 to 1. All right, first question. What comes to your mind when you think of ancient Greece? All right, there's a lot of things with ancient Greece, right? You might think of the old ruins like the Acropolis. You might think of the cool pottery. You might think of some intricate marble statues. Maybe you think about mythology like the Cyclops or Medusa. Maybe you think about the wine or the olive oil that Greece is most famous for. Or maybe you like to think about like the Hercules movie from Disney because that's like one of my favorites. All right, so here's just a little map of what we're going to go over today. I know in the last ed puzzle you all did, you like went through the geography, but just kind of like a refresher. So looking here, so here's kind of a zoomed in map of ancient Greece. So anything in orange is going to be kind of like Greek territory. And you will see here are some of the major city states. And we are going to definitely want to note where Athens is. Okay, so here's Athens, and then also Sparta. All right, it's Greek mythology time, people. So think back to your Percy Jackson tween novel days and match the gods to the descriptions. I'm not grading them on right or wrong, so please don't use Google. Just use your best educated guess. All right, yeah. So Poseidon, he is the sea, storm, earthquake, horses god. Mostly we know him because of the sea. Hades, he's in the underworld with his cool three-headed dog. There's Ares, okay, he's going to be the god of war and courage. There's Zeus, who's kind of the head god. He's of the sky. There's Athena. She's going to be pretty important today. She is the goddess of war, handicraft, and practical reasoning. And then Aphrodite, who is the goddess of love and beauty. All right, so religion in ancient Greece. So Greek writing was created about 800 BCE. So a lot of the religious aspects of ancient Greece were passed down orally. Okay, so when I say orally, that means like spoken. That also creates a lot of variations in the story, especially when it comes to Greek mythology. So Greeks were polytheistic, like we talked about quite a few times now. That means many gods. There are 12 main Olympian gods, and then there's like dozens of minor gods. I try to Google them all, but there's a lot. So, yeah. There's also Mount Olympus. That is actually a real mountain in Greece. Okay, until I was like in high school, I thought it was fictional. No, it's real. It is thought that's where the gods live, is on the top of the mountain. And here's a beautiful picture of it. It is the tallest mountain in Greece. Yeah, you can actually go hike it. And there's temples held worship, sacrifices, and also oracle prophecies with the religion in ancient Greece. Again, here's a picture. And apparently, there's also a mountain in Utah called Mount Olympus, and that really tripped me up. All right, so Greek resources. I know in the last Ed puzzle video, I went through some of the natural resources that Greece provides, but I just kind of want to review them real quick. The first one would be maritime resources. And when I mean maritime, I'm talking about things from the ocean, okay? So any like seafood from the ocean, other aquatic materials. Yeah. All right. There's also with Greece, there's the downfall that it doesn't have great soil. Okay, so it's a very thin topsoil that is not good for farming. But farming still can be done there. It just has to be plants that don't have really deep roots. So a lot of the times, ancient Greeks farmed grains. Of course, there are olive trees, and there are, did I say grape trees? Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. Grapevines. I meant vines. Wow. There's also sheep and goats that were herded. And of course, marble, right? With all those beautiful statues. Clay for the pottery, that is really iconic, as you can see an example over here. So, where did they get the resources that they didn't have? So, a lot of the time, Greece got their gold, timber, iron, copper, tin, and all the other like grains and food supplies from places such as Anatolia, Cyprus, Egypt, and Italy. And how do they get it? They got it by boat, right? Because pretty much all of Greece is like little islands. All right. So next we'll talk about Polis. So Greece's landscapes is pretty much just a bunch of hills and a bunch of valleys. There's not a whole lot of flat land, and that really hinders cities because they can't like build massive cities because it's so hilly. So cities were pretty condensed, and this caused things called polises. Now, polises or poli, sorry. What a polis is just another name for a city state, right? So we talked about city states before, back in unit two. Yeah. Um, so they mean the exact same thing. And if you forgot what it means that cities with an immediate rural surrounding that um, is the center of political and cultural rule. So like a city kind of acts like their own country or kingdom. Um, and there can be a few thousand people to several 100,000 people within a city state. So Athens, which we're going to talk about quite a bit today, that is one of the largest city states in the world. Oh, here's an artist rendition of Athens. All right, so the Acropolis. So it literally translates to top of the city. So it's a city center located on top of a hill. So here's my question. What buildings were built and who do you think lived in the Acropolis? All right, so it was high ranked people or royals that lived on top of the Acropolis. There was also a lot of religious temples. For example, here is the Acropolis, okay, with a capital A. Um, that is in Athens. They also held entertainment shows like dances with musicians and also plays at Acropolises. All right, so next we have the Agora. That translates to gathering place. So it's just like a really big open area or plaza. Usually it's paved. Um, and the government buildings for the city state are located there. What's most important about the Agora is that it's a rally point for citizens to open or to voice opinions about their political and military affairs, right? Also, it was open air markets. So, like the big city market, this would be the place to go. So, here's a modern day Agora in Greece. And here's what there is left of the ruins of the Agora in Athens. All right, so rural citizens, can't forget about them. So they're citizens who lived in the outskirts of the polis. As you could probably guess, most of them were farmers and herders, especially sheep and goats. Uh, they were pretty much the backbone of the city because they sourced the main food supply for the city to live off of. Um, and they weren't unseen because of that. Okay, they were really highly appreciated as citizens and members of society. They were not treated like outcasts, and they were very much so welcomed into the cities. Here's a vase of some people picking olives, and somebody's chilling up in the tree picking olives. All right, so farmers are warriors. Yes, in ancient Greece they are. So farmers were the first to be chosen to be soldiers in a war. Now, a lot of the times when there were wars in ancient Greece, it was between poli or city states. And most of the time it was about farmland. Okay. Remember, farmland's not well in Greece. So if there's a good chunk of farmland, everyone wants it. So more farmland means more food, which means more population that city state could sustain. So if farmers are battling in wars, what's a major problem with that? All right. So no one's tending to the farms, right? That's where you may be wrong or you may be right. So there are these people called the hoplites. Okay. So they are heavily armed soldiers. Um, and what's so interesting about the hoplites, because this is like kind of the first time in history where soldiers are literally like lined up shoulder to shoulder like a giant moving wall. Um, and they like battle other city states. Um, and what the cool thing about this was is that since they were battling other city states, they are all relatively close together. So they didn't have to travel very far. Usually battles lasted a few hours, not even a day, just a few hours. Survivors left after a few hours to go back to their farm fields. Okay, so the hoplites mostly were farmers. Okay, they'd go into battle for a couple hours, be like, oh, we won or we lost, and then they go back to their farms. That's it. It's pretty cool. And here's a picture of what a hoplite would have looked like. All right, so the Greeks, they were snooty people. I didn't know what else words to say except for snooty. I'm like, yeah, let's just do snooty. So the Greeks really thought highly of themselves. Okay, they called themselves Hellenes, um, and then they called all foreigners, like no matter where they are, what education level they were at, they called the foreigners barbaroes. So, what English word does barbaroe sound like? Yeah, it sounds like barbarian or someone who was thought to be uncivilized. So that's actually where the word barbarian comes from. Thought their language, religion, and lifestyle was superior. The Greeks literally thought they were superior in every single way. Although different poli were rivals, they all spoke and wrote the same Greek alphabet in Greek language. All right, so tyrants. Before we get to tyrants, let me give you a little bit more background about what governments were like in early ancient Greece. So early poli governments were ruled by kings or like a royal family. So that was about from 800 to 700 BCE. Most of the time, these upper class people owned most of the farmland. And farmers, especially the really, really poor farmers, had to buy the seeds from their king or the royals. And then they had to give part of their harvest to the king and the royals. Um, and this, like control over the land, made a lot of kings and royals really power hungry. Okay, so they wanted like control of everything. So they became tyrants. So what a tyrant is someone who holds power and is unfair to any lower class below them. So hoplite soldiers, like we talked about before, right? So they're mostly farmers. They demanded their say in politics. They're like, hey, we're the ones out in the front line, like battling these other city states. Like, we better have a say in what politics and military action goes on. So they do succeed. Long story short, they do succeed, and this leads to the formation of democracy. All right, democracy is born. So demo translates to people, kratos translates to power. So people hold the power. That's literally what democracy means. And what it is that people vote on political issues. Okay, next up, we are going to answer some questions about similarities and differences between Athens democracy. Okay, so Athens is a polis in ancient Greece, and the United States is democracy. Now, I don't expect you to know the difference all the differences between them. You should know something about the American democracy. But if you don't, that's okay. Just take an educated guess. On your study guide, also make sure that you write down the similarities and differences on the lesson 4 Venn diagram. All right, first question. Direct democracy is when citizens debate and vote directly on laws that govern their city. Which democracy has a direct democracy? That's right, Athens does. The US does not. We have a representative democracy where people vote and elect officials who represent them. Question 2. Which democracy had government officials be chosen by a lottery or a random drawing? That's right, it's Athens, okay? So the US chooses government officials by the candidate that gets the most votes. But in Athens, they would literally like drop coins and whoever like you wanted, and then someone would like reach their hand in, pick out a coin, and whoever's name was on there won. All right, which democracy finds citizens or paints a red X on them if they don't vote? Yeah, that's Athens. That's not the US, okay? So in the US democracy, no one can force a citizen to vote. All right. Who is classified to be an Athens citizen? Choose all that apply. Yes, to be considered an Athens citizen is very different than the US definition. So they had to be male, both of their parents had to be from Athens, they had to be a landowner, and they had to be free. They could not be enslaved. Of course, if you remember back to the beginning of the Constitution, these rules were pretty much similar to what the US's first classification of a citizen or someone who could vote was. All right, who is classified to be an American citizen? Choose all that apply. That's right. So citizens, there's quite a few definitions of them, but the big two are that you're born in the United States, okay? Or if you are naturalized into the United States. So that's where someone's born elsewhere, but went through the documents and test become a US citizen. And then there's some other specific ones as well. Um, but yeah, I don't want to run out of time. All right, true or false? Athens did not have a constitution. That's false. They actually did have a constitution, and historians have found copies of it. And it laid out three branches of government. The first one's called Council of 500. The second one is called Assembly, and the third one was called Courts. What are the three branches of the U.S. government set up by the U.S. Constitution? I'm really having you think back to the past, right? Yeah, so there's three: legislative, judicial, and executive branches. All right, what percentage of people in Athens could vote? Yeah, only 20% could vote. Crazy. Remember, only males, both parents from Athens, landowners, and free could vote. So that automatically eliminates all the women in the Athens population. What percent of people in the US can vote? Take your best guess. That's right. I was kind of shocked by this number too, but it is actually 93% of people living in the United States are qualified to vote. All right, Athens versus Sparta. Okay, now it's time to learn about the similarities and differences between Athens and Sparta. You ready? I don't know. Are you ready? Are you sure you're ready? Yeah, no, I'm not going to tell you. That would be way too long of a video. I am going like as long as I can here. Okay, so instead, you are going to complete Unit 3L5, which is a reading about Athens versus Sparta. Um, and then you're going to complete the Venn diagram on the U3L5 document of the similarities and differences between Sparta and Athens. Um, yeah, I'll probably make this a Cami assignment. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know yet. We'll see. It'll be a surprise for both of us. But make sure you do have the Cami Chrome extension. Also, with this assignment, okay, we've been doing a lot of writing. I want to see your pictures. Yes, I want to see your artistic styles. So you are going to draw me a picture of two people, one an Athenian and one a Spartan, and what you think they would look like based on the evidence of the text you just read. Here's the deal. You got to give me some detail, okay? Like no little stick figures. Like you can do stick figures, that's cool, but make sure you put some clothes on them and they're doing like activities that Athenians or Spartans would be doing or wearing. No copying and pasting pics from Google. Remember, I want these hand drawn. If you do, it's an automatically half points off of your assignment. Okay, I want to see you and you like your artwork. Yeah, okay. You can also draw it in real life and then upload a pic to the Cami um, document if you want to do that too. All right. So, a review of today's lessons. So, students, you guys again would be able to identify basic Greek mythology and religion. So, we talked about that with polytheism, major gods, Mount Olympus. Identify elements of a polis. Again, that's the same word as a city state. We talked about the Acropolis and Agora. And then identify the role of warriors and farmers in Greek city states. Um, so, how they fought for farmland, how their battles were super short, who the hoplites were, and then explain how democracy in uh, Greece is similar to the US's democracy. And then you guys did that with the Venn diagram. So nice job. Way to go. All right. So next time, again, you're going to do that U3L5 Athens versus Sparta reading assignment. Um, the learning targets are identifying similarities and differences between Athens and Sparta, about their government, economy, and social structures. You're also going to apply the similarities and differences of Athens and Sparta through a detailed drawing, which I am so looking forward to looking at. If you have any questions at all, email me, okay? I check my emails very frequently. Also, come to office hours Thursday and Friday from 12 to 1, okay? All right. That's all I got for you. See ya.